For the last decade or so, the big mantra has been move everything to the cloud. But what if that's starting to change? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty fundamental shift in how we build for the internet and explore why that whole all-in-on-one cloud era might just be coming to an end. And hey, don't just take my word for it. This is a direct quote from Justin Borgman, the CEO of Starburst. It just perfectly nails the huge change that's happening in the industry right now. That idea of putting all your digital eggs in one cloud basket, well, people are starting to seriously rethink that. And this isn't some far-off prediction either. It's happening right now, and it's being driven by some very real, very painful business challenges. Companies are feeling the sting of major outages, they're getting trapped by vendor lock-in, and they're wrestling with costs that can be, frankly, all over the place. The pressure is on to find a better way. Which, of course, brings us to the big question we're tackling today. If the cloud everything era is on its way out, what's next? What's the new standard for building solid, high-performance apps online? Well, as we're about to see, the answer lies in thinking distributed in a multi-cloud world. Okay, first, let's look at why this is all happening. What are these cracks that are starting to show in that single cloud foundation? To really get why this is so urgent, all we have to do is look at the cost of failure. Just let this number sink in for a second. $300,000. According to industry analysis, that is the average cost of a single hour of website downtime. So yeah, when your one and only cloud provider has a bad day, the financial stakes are just massive. And downtime is just one piece of the puzzle. The drivers forcing this change are coming from all sides. We're seeing major outages from the big hyperscalers plastered all over the news. Companies are feeling the squeeze of vendor lock-in, which just kills their bargaining power. Costs are going up. And on top of all that, you've got new pressures around data sovereignty and spotty performance in different parts of the world that make a one-size-fits-all strategy look pretty shaky. So if relying on one provider is the problem, what's the solution? This is where a multi-cloud, and even more specifically, a multi-CDN architecture comes in as a really powerful answer to all of these challenges. So what is a multi-CDN strategy? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's about strategically using a bunch of different content delivery network providers and making them work together as one team. The whole point is to build a single, unified system that's way more resilient and performs way better than any one provider ever could on its own. It's about playing to everyone's strengths. And the impact on reliability is, well, it's dramatic. A single CDN might give you 99.9% uptime. That sounds awesome, right? But do the math, and that's still over 8 hours of potential downtime a year. Compare that to a multi-CDN setup, which can hit 5 nines of reliability. That's 99.999% uptime. That translates to less than 6 minutes of downtime in an entire year. The difference is just staggering. This approach really delivers 4 key benefits that directly solve the problems we were just talking about. First, you get resilience. No more single point of failure. If one CDN goes down, traffic just automatically gets rerouted. Second, you get way better performance because you can send every user to whatever network is fastest for their specific location. Third, you get cost optimization, which helps you tame those unpredictable bills. And finally, flexibility, which is the ultimate cure for vendor lock-in. Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but how does it actually work under the hood? Let's take a look at the technical side of how you actually build an architecture like this for resilience. This is the big idea right here. A cross-cloud network. Think of it as one single intelligent front door for all your users. As you can see, all the traffic comes into this one network, and then it connects to all your backend services, no matter where they are. They could be running on Cloud A, Cloud B, GCP, even in your own data center. The best part? To your users, it's completely seamless. So let's follow a single user request through this system. First, it hits your security policy at the edge. If the content they want is already sitting in the CDN cache, that's a cache hit, boom, it's served up instantly. If it's not there, a cache miss, the request gets passed to a global load balancer, which intelligently sends it to the right backend service, wherever it happens to live. And this is where the real magic, the real flexibility comes into play. That global front end doesn't care what kind of backend you have. It can route traffic to virtual machines on one cloud, Kubernetes clusters on another, serverless functions, or even back to your own physical servers. This architecture gives you total freedom to pick the best tech for the job without worrying about where it's hosted. So, we've seen the architecture. Now let's get practical. How do you actually make the day-to-day decisions that get a multi-CDN setup working in the real world?
You've basically got two main ways to steer your traffic: DNS-based and API-based. The DNS approach is simpler to set up and works everywhere. You're essentially just telling the internet's address book where to send people. The API approach is way more powerful. It gives you real-time fine-grained control based on live performance data, but you guessed it, it's also more complex to manage.
A multi-CDN strategy works because, let's be honest, not all providers are created equal. They each have things they're great at. For instance, AWS CloudFront is amazing if you're deep in the AWS ecosystem. Akamai is legendary for its security. Fastly is a leader in edge computing, and Cloudflare is a beast at DDoS protection. This approach lets you pick and choose the best provider for any specific task or region. But there is a catch. You have to be careful. If you have, say, 4 or 5 different CDNs all hammering your main server, your origin, asking for the same piece of content, you can accidentally launch a denial of service attack on yourself. It's a real problem called origin overload, and it's something you absolutely have to solve for. And here's a brilliant real-world solution. Bedrock Streaming ran into this exact issue. So what they did was implement a centralized caching layer called an origin shield. It created one single place for all their CDNs to pull content from. And the result? They cut the load on their origin server by more than 26%, without any other big architectural changes. It instantly made their whole system more stable and cheaper to run. So where is all of this going? I mean, this shift to multi-cloud isn't happening in a bubble. It's actually part of a much bigger trend towards an internet that's more distributed, more resilient, and a whole lot smarter. First off, the rise of AI is actually pulling work out of a single public cloud, and it's for some really practical reasons, like performance, cost, and data sovereignty. Companies are quickly figuring out that for critical AI jobs, you want the computing to happen as close as possible to where the data lives, whether that's in-house or in some kind of hybrid setup. Second, this isn't just a tech trend anymore. Regulators are starting to pay attention. Especially in fields like finance, there's this growing worry about cloud concentration risk, the danger of too many critical systems relying on just one or two providers. This is pushing companies to build truly portable applications that can actively run and fail over between clouds. And finally, we're seeing this big push toward more open, composable systems. Businesses are just plain tired of having to copy their data all over the place and being locked into one vendor's way of doing things. The future is all about platforms that can plug right into a company's existing data lakes and cloud services, letting them bring their own tools to the party. So, all of these trends, resilience, AI, regulation, open systems, they're all pointing in the exact same direction. The era of trying to centralize everything in one neat little box is over. The future is distributed. And that leaves us with one last, really important question to think about. Is your infrastructure ready for it?